Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me. My name is Jennifer Brandell, and I'm the instructor for this engagement portion of the course. This is the first video on this topic, and I'll be sharing concepts and examples to transform your election coverage so that the public is more involved and that your reporting is of more use to them. I'm excited to share this important component of a very powerful combination that you'll be learning in this course, using engagement journalism, solutions journalism, as well as trust-building techniques in your elections and politics reporting. A quick bit about me: I've been working to build the field of audience and community engagement since 2012. As a reporter at WBEZ Chicago, I started to experiment with different ways to shift the editorial process so that the public was at the center. What that means is that the public had the opportunity to share what information they wanted reporters to be getting on their behalf. This public-powered model worked so well that newsrooms all over the world have started to adopt it and change their top-down approaches to a more bottom-up, inclusive approach. The company I run is called Hearken, which means to listen and to give respectful attention. And among many things, we help reporters, editors, producers shift that editorial process to put the public at the center. In the next two courses, I'm going to teach you some engagement fundamentals. That is, some concepts and mental models that really undergird successful engagement with relationship building with the people that you're trying to serve. That is the focus of today's lessons, the fundamentals. The next course will translate those concepts into action, and I'll take you through some examples of newsrooms that have deployed this model and share their resulting reporting, as well as some exciting third-party data that shows this kind of approach actually strengthens relationships with the public as well as newsrooms' bottom line. Okay, so let's jump into today's topic, elections and engagement. Okay, let's jump into today's topic, Engagement 101. We're going to start with defining engagement. What does it actually mean? The word engagement means so many different things to so many people. At its worst, it's used as a meaningless catch-all and a buzzword. Some people use engagement to describe consumption. That is, they might say, "This story got great engagement." And what they mean is that a lot of people clicked on, watched, or listened to a piece of journalism. For our purposes, that is not how we define engagement. Here is how we define it. Engagement happens when members of the public are responsive to you, and you are in turn responsive to members of the public. It's a feedback loop, a mutually beneficial relationship. That's one definition. But the thing is, there is no fully agreed upon definition of what engagement means in the news industry. That doesn't mean you and your colleagues shouldn't consider making one and consider ways in which you use that terminology. In fact, a variety of newsrooms have created their own definitions. Each has a similar way to frame engagement, but also it's specific to their place and their newsroom culture. So you don't need to have an ironclad definition to do great engagement work, but you do need to have a few key concepts front of mind when designing and implementing engagement journalism. So we're going to talk about audience versus community engagement. There's an important point I want to share here about the language and the difference between audience and community engagement. They're not the same thing. The audience is composed of people who are already familiar with you or your news outlet. They may be avid fans or consumers of your work, and potentially even paying subscribers or members, if that's your revenue model. Community, on the other hand, are the people who are not in your audience and may not even know what your newsroom is or what it does. These days, a lot of newsrooms are reckoning with histories of super serving some demographics and not really serving the needs of many other people in their communities who need important information that journalists are gathering. So many newsrooms are turning to community engagement approaches in which they work to listen to and be of value to the people they haven't yet served. A handy metaphor that I think about with audience engagement is around your house or their house. Audience engagement is really super serving the people who come to your house, who already know of you. They know your website, your social media, they already know your brand, and they're in touch with you. Community engagement requires you to actually center the people who you aren't serving yet and engage them on their terms. You may end up looking for the same types of insights from both audience and community, but your approach is naturally going to be different. So here's an example. You might end up asking the same kind of question to both your audience and your community, but you're going to be asking your audience that question on your channels. And when you're asking your community, you have to go to their house, essentially. Figure out where are they hanging out, whether that's literally in person or digitally online. Where are the people that you're trying to serve? So you might wonder which approach is right for you, audience engagement or community engagement. It's great to do both if you have the staff and the buy-in from leadership to do both of them well. But doing it well means keeping your promises and following up with the people you have engaged so they know what happened to their contributions. That's called closing the loop or completing the engagement ring. And if you can commit to that, we encourage you to pursue both audience and community engagement. All right, so now we're going to talk about the engagement ring. Here is a visual representation of the engagement ring. In its simplest form, it has 4 parts, starting with your newsroom, crafting some kind of invitation for the people you're looking to serve, be it audience members, community members, or both. For simplicity's sake, we'll call them the public. The second part is that the public responds to the invitation. If you stop here and you collect a bunch of insights, but you don't actually do anything with the feedback or follow up, we call that being an asshole. You don't want to be an asshole. The third step is taking the responses, learning something, and integrating that into your decision making and whatever products you make, whether that's a story, an event, a video, a strategy, some kind of decision, whatever it is. The last part of the engagement ring is acknowledging their contribution, following up with them to thank them and let them know what they made possible. After all, a lot of people might engage but never know if you actually heard them or not, unless you tell them. So it's best not to take on engagement if you're not in a position, not able to do steps 3 and 4. Otherwise, you risk being extractive. And here's a little bit more about what that means. We think about 3 levels of engagement: extractive, transactional, and relationship. Like I said, it's very important to not be extractive. What does that mean? Well, we don't ask for something that you won't actually use. Don't ask for too much if what you're offering in return isn't clear or isn't much of anything. So here's an example of what an extractive ask can look like. And here are some other characteristics of extractive approaches as well. There's no context given to the participant, there's no meaningful incentive to get involved, and they're really not left better off than they were before. The next approach is what we call transactional. Now, the word transactional may have a negative connotation, but we mean it neutrally, as in a transaction has taken place. You ask for something and explain why, and the public answers because they found it to be a compelling enough exchange. Here's an example of that kind of approach and the characteristics of it. I'll give you a moment just to read the slide. Okay, the last level is relational engagement. Here's where things can get really interesting and also, dare I say, magical. Relational work means you're really up for learning and changing what you do based on what you hear from the public. So you're not necessarily giving them a small role to play. You are up for potentially co-creating what you report and really treating the public as a partner and not a consumer. Here's an example of that kind of approach and the characteristics. I'll give you a moment to look at the slide. Okay, here's all the approaches in one place if you just want to take a look at them. Again, we want to make sure you're doing transactional or relational and not extractive. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about from this module is why engage. Why does it matter? In short, it helps the people you're serving get information that's more relevant to them because they are telling you what they need. You're not assuming. That is what newsrooms usually do. Reporters, editors, producers assume they know what information the public needs. So this approach doesn't assume, it asks and ensures that you're actually doing what they want, which is surprising to some newsrooms in that they don't actually have it right. Oftentimes the public has different information needs than the folks working in the newsroom assume they have. So it's always great to check. We have third-party studies confirming this as well. That's not only confirming that this helps with trust with the people you serve, but it's also a great way of strengthening your own news outlet sustainability. Engagement helps you strengthen those bonds, both of trust and of financial sustainability as well. So we're excited to say it's not just a good thing to do to help your mission, it actually also helps you stay in business. All right. Well, that's a lot for today and for this video. In the next course, we're going to explore a handful of approaches to engagement around elections coverage and how newsrooms have taken these principles and put them into practice. Thanks so much for your time and attention.